Chapter 22. Of all the weird shit Jess had seen and experienced in the last couple of weeks, this had to be, hands down, the absolute mother of them all. The crash landing of a giant alien ship that had very nearly run them down, followed by the appearance of a small, deadly-looking Japanese woman, maybe early 30s TS, with beaded hair and a scar shaped like a lightning bolt between her eyes, wearing alien armour that looked a hell of a lot like the armour on that cloaked creature. And the hair, and that mask she's holding. "You're human," he said finally. A stupid statement, but all he could think of. He wanted reassurance. The woman, Noguchi, nodded almost shyly. "Yeah, thanks. You'll have to excuse me. I haven't... You don't know how good it is to speak to people again." They stood for a moment not speaking at all, just staring at one another. The crackling light of the ebbing station fire making it seem even stranger. Jagged shadows dancing across the peculiar scene. Jess knew that they had to find Ellis, that they needed weapons and supplies, that they had to get off Bunda. But all he could do was stare at this woman, wondering when he was going to wake up. And just when I thought things couldn't get any more fantastic, Christ, what a freak show. Lara finally broke their odd silence, taking a step toward Naguchi. "You said you were here to help, Miss Naguchi. Do you mind telling us exactly what's going on?" Her smile gone, Naguchi looked down at the mask in her hands before answering, her stilted voice gaining strength as she spoke. "It's kind of a long story. I heard that people on this planet, on Bunda, were in trouble, and I knew that I had to choose which side I was going to be on. The Hunters, or yours." Jess frowned, making the connection between the woman's clothes and hair and the thing that had jumped him near the shuttle. Apparently, there was more than one. "The Hunters? The invisible, people who attacked the survey station? You're with them?" "I've been with them for over a year," Naguchi said, "and they're not human. I learned the hard way that it was a mistake to think a human being could adapt to their culture, their clan." She grinned, the look of it sending a chill down Jess's spine. He'd had a hard life, and didn't know what he'd ever seen anything as dangerous as that smile. Now they're learning just how big a mistake that was. Jesus, who is this woman? Noguchi shook her head, as if clearing it. "Look, I made quite an entrance, so it won't be long before we have company. Are there any other survivors? We've got to round them up and get to cover." Lara glanced over at him, and he shrugged, grimacing at the dozens of aches the action inspired. If there were any people left, the chances of finding them didn't seem so hot. "You aren't the only ones, are you?" Noguchi asked. "There are 3 of us, actually," Lara said. "There may be others, but I guess we have a long story of our own." Noguchi nodded, scanning the trees behind them with the practiced ease of someone used to battle, while Lara spoke. "And I'm interested in hearing it, but we're going to need more weapons," she said. "Stay here." Without waiting for a response, she turned and walked quickly back around the mammoth nose of the alien ship, disappearing through the dancing, smoking shadows that twinned through the broken trees. "Hunters," Lara said quietly. "What are they hunting?" Jess shook his head. "Us? I don't know. Maybe she can help us find Ellis at least." He trailed off, wondering if Lara had considered the possibility that the kid wasn't lying in the dirt somewhere, knocked out. The way he'd acted just before the platform crashed, guilt-ridden and near hysteria. Maybe he'd run off, his fragile emotional state finally hitting overload. Or he could have gotten killed by one of those alien friends of Miss Noguchi's. The sudden appearance of the woman didn't seem real, even though the proof was right in front of them. 20 plus meters high. Jess tried to say something to Lara about the newest edition of their little party, feeling like they should have some exchange before she returned. What's to say? She's here, and we're not in a position to turn away help, no matter how strange the helper. You think she's okay? Trustworthy? Jess asked finally. Lara hesitated for a second, then nodded. Yeah. My gut says yeah. Jess nodded, glad they agreed on her basic intentions, if nothing else. Noguchi might be certifiable, but she obviously meant well. Before they could talk any more, the woman reappeared, striding through the long grasses of the partial clearing. She held 2 rifle-like weapons, in addition to the one strapped to her back. They looked something like old-style machine guns with oversized grips. These are burners, she said, handing Jess one of the heavy weapons, the other to Lara. She unshouldered her own, holding it up for them to see the long, flat button on the front grip. Trigger. There's no safety, so be careful. No kick either, but they ride high. They shoot a semi-liquid pulse of explosive particles, I guess? I'm not much of a scientist. You'll have to forgive my lack of knowledge here. Jess held the ungainly burner, remembering how big the creature that had attacked him had been. Naguchi handled hers easily, obviously comfortable with the overlong barrel and thick grips. Jess was suddenly extremely glad that she decided to show up. She was something else. Noguchi cleared her throat, looking between the two of them, smiling nervously again. I'm sorry, I haven't even asked your names. Amazing. She crashes a ship, shows up talking about travelling with a pack of aliens, and still blushes when she talks. Lara gripped the burner tightly, speaking calmly to the anxious woman. I'm Catherine Lara. This is Martin Jess. The third member of our group is Brian Ellis. When the platform crashed, we lost track of him. As for any others, a private shuttle and I think a couple of transports got away before the station went down, so maybe they're already safe. Jess nodded, realising that Noguchi would need some background for the little saga to make sense. He picked the story up, trying to keep it short. There are these creatures, aliens, that have been discovered all over the colonies. They're extremely dangerous. They can adapt to any environment, and they breed like nothing you've ever seen. Lara, Ellis and I were part of an extermination team that was sent to a space station a little over a week ago to wipe out a nest of them. What we didn't know was that the station had been deliberately infested. Jess hesitated, feeling the same old rage rising up. By the company we work for. They wanted to see how long it would take the aliens to kill 400 people. Families. He suddenly wished desperately that Briggs was still here on Bunda, the rush of anger blocking out all other concerns. Lara touched his shoulder gently, taking over. We lost 2 members of our ground team and ended up here. They sent a suit, an executive, to see if we had the information about the nest spread. But we don't. It got blown up along with the station and about 1,000 aliens. Bugs, we call them. Noguchi had listened to them without expression, but now she nodded, apparently unsurprised by their story. And what she said next was a shock that reminded Jess of his earlier, idiotic assumption that meeting this woman was the strangest thing that had happened, that could happen. Yeah, I call them that too. We have more in common than you know. To the clan, they are kinda amada, the hard meat. They are what the hunters usually hunt, and this world has been seeded with them. Lara and Jess wore twin expressions of astonishment. Noguchi found herself marvelling at the look of them both, at the intricate, telling lines and planes of their faces. If Yautja faces were capable of subtlety, she'd never seen it. Finish talking, there can't be much time left. There was even a bug mother on our ship, she said, nodding towards the grounded shell. Probably dead now. The hunters seed entire planets with eggs and hunt drones for sport, It's... Their entire culture is built around the hunt. It's very much like a religion for them. Noguchi sighed, shaking her head. I thought they had rules against hunting intelligent life, against hunting humans. It seems I was wrong. Lara stared at her. You mean they hunt bugs for fun? Noguchi nodded. Apparently, they started their hunt in another part of Bunda, but it's still early. They'll be heading this way very soon. You haven't seen any bugs yet? They both shook their heads, and she was glad to note that both immediately started watching the dark walls of the jungle, alert to new danger. That they'd been part of an extermination crew was good. They wouldn't be entirely helpless when the drones attacked, at least. What about your friend, Ellis? Naguchi asked. You say you lost him. Lara nodded, but Jess shifted uncomfortably, his bruised face set unhappily. He may have lost us, he said softly. Noguchi noticed that Lara didn't seem surprised by the differing opinion, even though it was obvious they hadn't discussed it. Another long story, but let's just say that he was injured on that space station. Got kind of fucked up, Jess went on. I think maybe he took off after the platform went down. He thought it was his fault. Naguchi wasn't sure what to make of that. She hoped they found him before any of the hunters did. Except that it was already too late. The tiniest whiff of Yautja musk was in the burnt air. She caught it even as she heard the soft snap of a branch underfoot, some 20 meters away, a slight rustling of leaves not far from it. Novices, and they won't be alone. Get behind me, now, she said, putting the mask on, wondering how many had come. It was a blooding hunt. Only a few should have burners, except it had been a human hunt too. No way to know how heavily they'd armed themselves, and she hadn't checked the weapon stock. And it doesn't matter. I have to protect them, get them out of harm's way. Naguchi backed away from the line of trees, back toward the ship, Jess and Lara flanking her, covering either side. The hunters wouldn't attack from a distance, although she couldn't be positive, not knowing what rules they followed for hunting Ooman. No, human beings. Kate Lara and Martin Jess. After so long with the hunters, she was astounded at how quickly she warmed to these two, and how easily they'd accepted her. These weren't the simpering colonists or corporate flunkies she'd expected. She would have fought for them either way, but the fact that they hunted bugs, that they were warriors of a sort, more than made up for the fact that she was risking her life to save only 2 people. These were her people. Noguchi knew that she was as swift and as sure as any one of the hunters. Not as strong, but undoubtedly smarter, because she wasn't so arrogant as to believe she would always prevail. And I might lose, but I'll be damned if I die without taking some of them with me. She'd get these people to safety, and then finish her business with the hunters. As soon as they made it into the deep shadow of the broken ship, Noguchi turned and ran, Lara and Ellis close behind as they plunged into the night jungle.